Our Computex 2024 coverage is made possible by Azus, G-Skill, Thantex, Team Group, Lian Li, ASRock, Corsair, XPG, Thermaltake, Clev, MONTECH, and Seasonic.
What's going on, guys? I'm Stuart from GGF and it is Computex Day 2 and we are at the MONTECH booth. Now they have a bunch of cases here. I couldn't believe how many they had. They just have rows and rows and rows. So we got quite a few to cover, and then they have a PSG we want to check out as well. Over here we have the King 95 Mega Pro. Now that is a bit of a mouthful, and this is MONTECH's, or one of their flagship cases. Now, if you're familiar with MONTECH, they've done a lot of cases with this full panoramic curved glass. Now this is actually in two sections, because if you're trying to get this off in one go, it would be a bit of a mission. So it actually is broken here. So this will come off, and then the front has that slight curve. Now one interesting aspect with this case, now I want to know your guys' thoughts. They do have a mesh panel front kit. Now would you guys like this included in the case when you get it, or would you like it an optional extra? So how many of you guys do go with the airflow at the front instead of the glass? And with this kit, I would assume you would also get this bracket as well. You'd probably get this with the case as well, actually, because it does have SSD support. That would go on the bottom if you don't want to use the fans. It will do 3 standard 2.5-inch SSDs on the bottom, but there's also 3 spots for the 3 2.5-inch SSDs on the rear as well. So you don't have to use this bracket if you need those SSDs. And this bracket can also be used multifunctional, can go at the front, and it can hold fans. It'd probably go like that. You wouldn't use that with this glass panel, so that's what I was saying before. If you went the mesh panel, you would then obviously throw this on the front, and that would give you support for those fans. Now some other features with the case, they're mainly boasting about this case can support 4090 support, and then you have 360 all-in-one cooling at the top. It's got this interesting side bracket. Now, I don't think I've seen actually any companies before have a movable side 360 fan bracket. I'll get some close-up shots on this. It can actually move to being a flat position, or it can move 30 degrees. Now the guys were doing some testing. They came up with 30 degrees because they found that was best. To me, I don't see how that would make a huge difference, but they were doing some testings from 1 to 5 degrees better in cooling for your GPU and your motherboard components, because basically, instead of being straight on, it's just blowing straight out here. It's more directed towards this way. It's going to move around these components and go up the top and out the back. And I think, from what I can see, there's just 2 positions flat or on the 30. It'd be pretty cool if they could do it in some different segments. So it could go like 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, and then you can play around and see what you prefer. Last thing I want to cover are things like the bottom and top radiator support. I can see they are doing 420, so that is good to see. I think at the moment there's not too many 420 all-in-one coolers out there, but with new Intel CPUs, new AMD CPUs, they're always pushing those limits. So having 420 at the top and the bottom, we'll see more companies bringing out those all-in-one coolers. And lastly, things like price, and when these cases are all launching, I'll put them in a description like I always do. Over here we have the HS01. Now this aesthetic is very clean, and I'm really liking the RGB strip down the bottom. And then you have this little cover plate. It's almost like a fan or a radiator bracket cover, which I do in a lot of my builds. Now the fans down the bottom here are actually sunken down. Behind me, there is another empty case, and we can have a little bit of a closer look on that, but we'll stay here for a bit and cover some more features. So the RGB wraps around. The RGB is actually built into the side panel, so once I take this side panel off, it'll take it off from here. And more on the inside, I would say probably one thing. I like how the bottom aesthetic is really nice and clean. You can't really see the side of the fans, but up the top, I think maybe if they could add another cover, and that would make it more symmetrical to the bottom and the top, because we can't really see the side of the fans. That's all clean, but you can see the side of the fans and the radiator. So some feedback there. Maybe if they can clean that up, that would make it perfectly symmetrical. And then moving down a little bit to this one over here. So for their color options, thinking about doing a standard black, and then they're thinking about skipping white. Everyone's doing white. It may not show up too well on camera, but this is a really interesting silver color. I wouldn't say it's 100% aluminum color. It's more of a darker type of aluminum color, but this isn't aluminum, it is steel, but they've tried to go for that color. Now, on the inside, they're also open to some more feedback on the cover plate over here. So this is all I would say it's a mesh, but it's a very thick, it's got a lot of holes, and the holes are quite, they're actually diamonds, but they're actually quite large. And then they've got a solid plate. They want to know, do you like this design concept? I actually really like this. I think it makes it a little bit different, a little bit industrial, or would you just prefer it being a complete 100% solid cover panel? So some other interesting areas is, as I said, you can see the fans are completely sunken down. Now, one disadvantage of that is to get those fans in there nice and tight, you do limit your radiator support, so there's no radiator support in the bottom here because those fans are sunk down there, just fans only. And then for the top, you do have radiator support, and I can see it is standard 360 up there. And then moving to the back of the motherboard, you might be running, well, there's this panel right here. This is removable, so if you're using a MATX motherboard, it would go down to here and it would stop here, and you can leave this cover panel in. But if you are using a full-size ATX board, it doesn't support eATX, only supports ATX. You can take this panel out and you can run it straight down. While we're talking about motherboard support, as you can see, it will do the BTF form factor and then also the Project Zero along the side. So all those back connect motherboards, I think a lot of the MONTECH cases I spoke to them do support the BTF and Project Zero. Any others that don't, I think it's more of their budget line of cases don't do it, but any that don't support it, I will let you guys know. But you can kind of tell quite easily if it does have these cutouts along the top, cutouts along the side where the motherboard would go, that normally indicates that it will support those back connect boards. Now, one area that I do find quite good with MONTECH, because a lot of companies out here, Computex, a lot of their cases are final and they're not really open to that much feedback. But the guys here have quite a few different, it's going to be hard to get this, they've got a different, they got quite a few different ideas on colors and how the side panel can be. So originally when I saw this one, I thought, hey, this one's a little bit too dark, but then they also have another one exactly the same, but the trim around the side is a lighter color. So they want to know your opinions. Do you want the darker trim? Do you want the lighter trim? I personally like the lighter trim. And same with the case we just covered before. They have a few options, so everything's not final yet. So it's good that they're not here at the show just showing gear that's pretty much done, set in stone, ready to be launched. Things like this as well. They want to know, do you prefer the solid panel or do you prefer the mesh panel? What is going on here? This thing looks completely different to what we've seen before. We've got this handle up here. This is called the HS01 Mini, and I do think it is pretty cool looking. Now, the guy said this isn't final. I did just say before, it's good how these guys have a lot of different options on display to show you guys what might look better, but unfortunately, this was quite rushed. They only have one set of colorway for this. It's not real leather, it is PU leather, because they couldn't go with the real leather because this is actually a handle, so it is stronger going with this option. So you might be wondering, well, how do I remove the side panels? Do I have to remove both at once and take them off? But no, you can undo this here. I actually haven't done this yet, so bear in mind, this should come out like this. That should open like that. We can throw that to the one side, and now this should slide straight out like so, and then that is how you gain access into this case. Now this is 33 liters. It's not the smallest. They're not going for anything SFF size or anything. It's just a smaller case than your traditional standard ones, and it will support MATX is the largest, and of course it'll go down to Mini ITX, and I can see it does have the BTF form factor. So if you're running the MATX, because originally BTF did come out in MATX and they are supporting that. We can see we've got support for 3 120s down the bottom, and then your PSU is at the front here. So we've seen this style before. A lot of other cases are doing this similar style, so it isn't anything new, but it's good that MONTECH have come out with, instead of just going with the standard chassis, they've tried to spruce it up a bit with that material on the outside. I'm thinking they could come out with some funky colors, maybe something like an orange. They could go into like interiors of luxury cars, and they could really go nuts with the different aesthetics on the outside. And they don't even need to stop with this leather material. I guess for the handle they have to, but they could go with some different options on that cover strips that we just saw. MONTECH are calling this one the Sky 3. Now they had the Sky 2 earlier, but this one is the Sky 3. Not too much to talk about here. The main feature they're going for in this series is airflow for your GPU. So they're really focusing on the new GPUs that are coming out. So from this shot, it's hard to see, but there's actually two 80mm fans down the bottom here. Now you might be thinking, well, why are they shooting straight across? There's actually a bit of a ramp here, so I'll get some shots down. So that will blow in, go up the ramp, and then straight onto your GPU. So for their testing, they've seen 1 to 3 degrees improvements on temps with using this solution. Now in terms of fans that come with this chassis, they do get the 3. I'm assuming it's the rear 140 and then the 2 on the side. And I guess you can include the 2 80s that are in the bottom. They do come with it. And that is it for that. There is RGB on the side, which is nice. And then for the motherboard support, I see it does your full ATX, MATX, ITX. Once again, it has that BTF Project Zero support as well. It just doesn't do EATX as well. I did notice that a lot of their cases here don't support EATX motherboards. That'll be for their flagship case, which we covered earlier. One thing I did notice, and on a lot of their cases, I think it's one we're going to be covering, but all of the others, their tempered glass is 100% transparent, even on the black ones. I know most cases do 100% clear on the white cases, but a lot of brands on their black are still doing like say a 30, 40, 50% tint on the glass. I want to know your thoughts on, do you prefer a bit of a dark tint? Do you prefer a 100% clear? Personally, I like 100% clear on white and black. I like to see everything inside. Of course, the rear side panel, I would prefer that to be 100% solid, whether it's aluminum or steel. I don't want to see in that, but for the front, I do like it to be 100% clear. Now, most of you guys know that MONTECH are all about their affordable cases. Now, these two here are also very affordable. They are the XR. I'm not sure where they came up with the name, but it is the XR. These two are exactly the same inside. They're just a little bit different on the outside. So this one retails for 63 US. This one retails for 69. So the main difference for the extra few bucks for this one, you get one extra fan, and then you also get the wood accents on the front. The wood accents, I think, is like it's like a black walnut, something like that. It does look like it's a non-stained wood material, but it is real wood, and it does look pretty cool. It just gives it a nice, appealing look to the front. I'm not sure if these will come out in black and white. I'll put it on the description for the prices if they come in a black and a white. I wonder how that would look like on the black chassis. Maybe they might come up with a different type of wood material to make it look wider. So the main difference between these two is there's a airflow and a non-airflow. So you get the two options. Obviously, your I/O on the non-airflow is going to be down the bottom. And then on the airflow, they've moved the I/O up the top because they wanted to keep this nice and cohesive at the front. Nice, clean design. Follow it through from the top to bottom. So they bumped the I/O from the bottom here because it would look a little bit weird. So they bumped that I/O from the bottom up to the top. And for motherboard support, you've got up to ATX. So these are the ones I was talking about that do not support the back connect motherboards. So your BTF and your Project Zero will not fit in here. It's just standard ATX motherboard support. You probably noticed that a lot of the cases here have the curved glass around the front. Now, if that's not your thing, that's not your style, they do have the King 65 Pro. As you can see, it is bringing back that traditional style with the glass at the front, glass at the side, but it has that chamfered 90 degree edge on it, and it just makes it a clean right angle. So if you don't like that curve, more of a fish tank style, there's this option. And then they've thrown in the tint. I know I said earlier that a lot of their cases didn't have a tint, but they didn't want to go one way, have zero tint on everything, or a super dark tint on all their others. They just wanted to have a bit of a mix, and this one here does have that very, very dark tint. I know some people do like that. As you can see standing back, it might be hard to see on the camera, but you really are just going to see the glow from your RGB components, and that is it. You're not really going to see inside as to where if that tempered glass was 100% clear. And that's pretty much it on this chassis. You've got a brushed aluminum front panel, and then the top will support the 360, and then bottom for 360 fans as well. And then it'll do ATX, micro ATX, and mini ITX. And then once again, I'll put the price on this chassis in the description as well. Now moving down to, this is quite a special collaboration on this chassis. Now we've done collaborations in the past, and this one's done with Gear Seekers. Now it's really good to see other YouTubers out there starting to get recognized to do collaborations on cases, because hey, we guys work with cases literally every single day. There's a lot of things we like with cases, there's a lot of things we don't like with cases, but a lot of times companies don't listen to our feedback and want really to know what the consumers really want. So the main changes with this one is, so Gear Seekers had to say to change the type of feet. Do they want square feet, rounded feet? They could change the design of the mesh panels at the top. They could go with the aluminum front. And one thing they're still undecided on, it is being called the King 95 Ultra. There's a lot of King 95s in this series, but they're deciding on whether to go with the dark tint tempered glass or the mesh front panel as well. To me, I think having the Ultra name, so they're wondering whether to do the glass or the mesh or both. Now to me, I think it should be both, because that would just look sick. Giving you the option, you could do a build a few months down the track, you might want to say, hey, I want to change the look a bit. throw this on the front, and that gives that an entirely different aspect on way the case looks. And then lastly, you get the anti-sag GPU stand. We've seen these before from other companies, and it does have the gear seekers written on there, and that's just literally support that your GPU will sit on to stop it from sagging. So this is pretty much the standard King 95, just with those extra nice little touches to give it that gear seekers perspective on this chassis. Lastly, here at the MONTECH booth, I want to cover this top PSU over here. Now, I was kind of surprised when they said this is a Seasonic OEM. We all know Seasonic are one of the best when it comes to power supplies, and this is the Titan PLA. I'm assuming the PLA means platinum, and this comes all the way from 750 watts all the way to 1200 watt, and this is based on the Seasonic Vertex OEM, but it doesn't just stop there. They haven't just thrown that unit in. They've done a few upgrades. They've upgraded it from ATX 3.0 to 3.1, and it also features PCI 5.1 ready, so they've upgraded that feature there, and then they've also upgraded the stock cables as well. And they told me with the standard Vertex, you need to go with the Prime to get these cables, but for these guys, they've upgraded these. This isn't a sleeve cable, it's the illusion of a sleeve, but it's some type of nylon, some type of plasticky rubbery material, but it looks like it is sleeve, so you are getting those nicer, high quality cables to that, and basically 10-year warranty. All the rest will follow what the Seasonic Vertex does have, and the prices on these are for $159 to the 750, all the way up to $229 for the 1200 watt. Now that's it at the MONTECH booth. We covered all those cases. There were a lot to check out. Once again, I'll put all the prices and their release dates in the description. I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank MONTECH for letting me take a look at all of their cases and their PSU they had on here, and I'll see you in the next one.